Morning, all. All right, so 4 games tonight in the NHL, first round. Every night there's been 4 games so far. I actually do like this. I do remember, too, it's not that long ago when we'd see extra days off and you'd have 5 games one night, maybe two, and then you have three. And I will say this is a nice regular schedule. When I'm setting up the boards every night, it's easy for me to figure out which one's next up. It's kind of fun. So at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific, we see the Carolina Hurricanes looking for a 3-0 stranglehold on this series in UBS Arena, who will host its first playoff game in the National Hockey League. The New York Islanders really have to win this game, right? If they have any chance in this series, they have to win. All the controversial actions in Game 2, we'll see how it impacts Game 3. We'll see how things are for Carolina without Teravainen. The good news for Carolina is, with the depth they have in their organization, they're able to absorb losses better than some others. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see with this game tonight how it turns out. Ronta, 923 save percentage through the first 2 games. Sorokin's save percentage has actually been higher, 932, meaning that Carolina's generated a lot more shots. That's something that the New York Islanders are going to have to work on too. Shot suppression against Carolina, as well as, figuring out a way to get the lead, keep the lead, and hold them at bay. 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific, the Boston Bruins and the Florida Panthers renew their rivalry. And for Florida, this might be the biggest game for this team in ages. Now, of course, they did get out of the first round last year, so we can have that debate and about how important it was for them to pass Washington and get out of that first round. But if they could knock off Boston in the first round, that would definitely change the public perception of that team at least a little bit. So Boston is trying to avoid what would be a catastrophic meltdown. Elmark, 902 save percentage through the first 2 games. Lyon, 909 save percentage through the first 2 games. And if you want to see just how much holding on to the puck is important to Boston, they led 15-5 in giveaways. So that's giving up the puck. You can't be giving up the puck once every 4 minutes. So if you're watching that game and thinking, man, it seems like Boston's turning over the puck a lot, yeah, you were right. And so that's something they need to change. And for Florida, they need to keep up that puck pressure and do their best. I don't think Bergeron's playing tonight. I was looking for some confirmation that he's not playing, but when I'm seeing questionable to even travel to Florida and all that stuff, I'm thinking, yeah, he's probably not playing tonight. And that does have an effect for Boston. Now, during the regular season, Boston's had an excellent record without Bergeron, but playoff hockey is a different beast, and Bergeron is a playoff veteran with just, absolutely great play during the playoffs. They miss him. It's that simple. They miss him, and while it's the next man up mentality, as Jim Montgomery said, there are limits to that next man up mentality. All right, 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific, the Dallas Stars in against the Minnesota Wild. This series is also tied at 1. Ottinger, 919 save percentage through the first 2 games. Gustafsson, who was the first goalie off the ice at practice, so he will likely be the starter, 962 save percentage. I would think if Fleury was the starter, some Minnesota fans wouldn't be very happy. He had a 774 save percentage in Game 2. Pavelski is not on the trip, so Pavelski will not be playing. It's weird. Both teams I cheer for, they have a top center that's out. And in the case of Pavelski, we know it's a concussion. With Bergeron, no idea. So with Minnesota, there's no answers coming from Dean Evison. Jesse Pierce trying her best to get answers from Evison. Not happening. Hartman's at morning skate. No word on whether or not he's playing. No word on whether or not Eriksson Ek might play. He's been skating as well, so we'll see. If Minnesota could get Eriksson Ek back, they could absolutely go up in this series. I think this series is pretty close with Gustafsson going back in. I honestly thought about wearing a Minnesota jersey for this, but that would be perceived as A, kind of weird since I'm a Dallas fan, and B, he's trying to jinx the Wild. At any rate, it should be a fun one tonight. My wife won't be able to see that one, sadly. She's got things that she's doing and whatnot, so she won't be home to watch most of that game. Then at 10 o'clock, or she won't be home to watch that at all, because then she's going to the Abbotsford game tonight as well. Don't worry, I will be home watching this for all you fine people on the internet. Then at 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific, the Edmonton Oilers and the LA Kings play Game 3. Now, I'm taking the Oilers because they cannot afford to get down 2-1. They can't afford to go into LA and lose this, but also Edmonton's been better on the road most of the year, so I think Edmonton's got a good shot in this one. Now, Skinner, 898 save percentage through the first 2 games. I thought he had a better game 2 than game 1, as a lot of Oilers did. Korpisalo, 921 save percentage for him. Korpisalo's given them the kind of steady goaltending that they would have wanted from Peterson, they would have wanted from Quick. They weren't getting, so they have Korpisalo and Copley as their goaltenders, and Korpisalo has been worth that investment so far. So this will be an interesting one tonight. Again, I like the Oilers' chances. I was trying to figure out, like, okay, well, these 2 series here, obviously I'd be just, either being a cheerleader or baffling people if I wore Florida or Minnesota. And I'm not wearing Carolina or the Islanders because that series is just, things are getting ugly already, and we're early, and we'll talk about how ugly things have been getting as well once we get into the news of the day portion of the program. Chris Kreider, with 4 power play goals in the first 2 games of the playoffs. That sets a record. The record in a series is 6, set by Chris Kontos in 1989 with the LA Kings. There's a name I haven't heard in a very, very long time. But I remember those playoffs. Kontos, as I remember, those playoffs where he had that good run, he ended up making some money off of that. It made him a household name, and teams were anxious to see what he might be able to do. He never recreated that magic in the playoffs in the regular season, but he got paid pretty well. ESPN is reporting that their viewership for the playoffs thus far, overall, between ESPN and ESPN2, are up roughly 10% from where they were last year through the first 3 days. So it doesn't include like last night's games, but through the first 3 days, viewership up 10%. And they're not on ESPN Plus. This is something that people have mentioned. I've had people message me about it. I've seen people mention this in response to the post about the viewership being up. I do find it odd it's not on ESPN Plus because I do have Sportsnet now. And like yesterday, as a for instance, the 6:30 start between Seattle and Colorado, which started at 6:50, it was not on TV. It was not on cable. So I had to go on to Sportsnet now in order to see the start of the Seattle-Colorado game because I'm trying to watch every minute of every game. And it's tough because when there's 2 games going on at the same time, especially when there's goals in both games at the same time, it can get a little bit hairy. But without Sportsnet now, I would have missed the first, 5-6 minutes of the Colorado-Seattle game, which would have been frustrating because the Rangers-New Jersey game was decided a while before that game was finished, and really you're just waiting to see is there going to be anything ugly that happens, we're going to get a brawl, where's what's going to happen, whereas the Colorado-Seattle game was going, and it was fun, and by the time people came in to watch it on TV, Seattle had already scored a couple of goals. So I do understand the ESPN argument. I will also say that for people who don't have Sportsnet now, missing out on time on Sportsnet of watching it, when you have 6 different Sportsnet channels, I find the whole thing weird. You have Sportsnet, what is it? You have Sportsnet Ontario, Sportsnet West, Sportsnet East, Sportsnet Pacific. You have Sportsnet 1, Sportsnet 360. Yeah, that's 6. When you have 6 networks and you can't figure out one that you could show the start of the Colorado-Seattle game with, because I scrolled around, I'm like, is it on any of them? No, it's not. All right, cool. And it said right on the bottom of the screen, it's on Sportsnet now. But for people who aren't subscribers, what are they to do? Oh, all right, never mind then. So it's just one of those things I think the NHL needs to figure out because come playoff time, we want to see every minute of the action. During the regular season, that's fine. I don't worry as much during the regular season, though it very rarely happens during the regular season, but it shouldn't happen at all during the playoffs. And if you paid for ESPN Plus, it should cover the playoffs as well. All right, so from last night's game between Toronto and Tampa Bay, the chirping through the glass, I've looked. I didn't see anything of somebody actually climbing the glass and trying to get into the penalty box. I will say this. I will agree with some people that, this is a game 2 of a 7-game series. And this is that kind of thing where, and maybe I'm a different kind of fan where you could sit me next to a penalty box 82 games a year. I'm never going to turn around and say something to a player's in the penalty box. I see that line. I see that there's a division between me as a fan and them as a player. And so I'm not going to get up and say something rude to the player. I'm not going to bang on the glass. I'm not going to do it. I'll engage with the game. I'll say whatever I want to say towards the game, and there's going to be times where I throw my hands in the air, but I'm not that passionate, angry fan that you see at hockey games. And it's pretty common, and those passionate fans will very often be either on the glass or up in the nosebleeds. It doesn't seem like they're in the in between, but the guys on the glass, the guys in the very upper parts of the arena, that's where you often find the guys who make the most amount of noise. And the chirping last night towards the Tampa Bay Lightning was there, but I didn't see anything that was that egregious. I know in the recap last night I talked about how you could see Pat Maroon after talking to the fan through the glass. So I didn't see anything there that was overly egregious. I've seen people saying this is why people hate Leafs fans. Hockey fans are like that everywhere. You're going to find that in Boston. You're going to find it in New York. You're going to find it in Montreal. You're definitely going to find it in Vancouver. It's everywhere. So I know going to Abbotsford games last week when the ref you suck chant started before the game, and that wasn't the game that I was at, but my wife is messaging me and saying, they've already started the ref you suck chant and the game hasn't started yet. That's why I threw that into the ref video yesterday, because I was like, wait, what? Yeah, as soon as they saw the ref, they started the ref you suck chant. So the game hadn't even gotten going. They're, it's just after warm-ups and they'd already started. And I was like, all right, well, that's cool. So again, I do understand the passions there. And I think that, for Leaf fans, I think there's a lot of frustration too. That this is a team they really desperately want to see get out of the first round. So, yeah, the Tampa Bay Lightning players become your enemy. All right, and Ottawa news: LeBreton Flats. So LeBreton Flats has been seen as, and it's west of the Parliament, and it's being seen as the best place for the Senators to put up their building. Now we've known that for years, right? And of course, that was the development that had a falling out with Eugene Melnick, and it's just been a disaster in general. But LeBreton Flats may very well be the future home for the Ottawa Senators. It's much closer to downtown, and so it's seen as a really good idea. Now, while Ottawa's attendance was up a lot this year, it went up quite a bit from where it was pre-pandemic even. And so for Ottawa, they're doing pretty well right now, and it feels like things are definitely improving. And this parcel of land that's being looked at for an arena, now they're talking about, expecting a major event center. So much like other arena projects that we've been talking about for the National Hockey League or hoping to attract the National Hockey League, it sounds like it's going to be an entertainment district. It's going to be more than just that building where you're going to have that arena in the middle of a bunch of other things. So I've talked about this on the channel before. Arenas themselves don't generally create a lot of revenue for the community, right? So if you're paying a lot of money for an arena, you may not get that money back. However, if it is part of an arena district with hotels, with retail, with residential, and with a bunch of other things around it, odds are you're going to get your money back for that investment. So it would be smart for LeBreton Flats and whoever ends up owning the Senators to discuss this. But MCC, which is kind of, looking at this whole thing and how this is all going to work, has already talked to the potential owners for the Ottawa Senators, probably say, hey, look, we will expand the parcel of land if we need to. So basically saying there's more land around there that they could make part of the parcel that's being used for development if that's necessary. So Ottawa doing whatever they can to make sure they've got a new home for the Ottawa Senators. I look forward to that. I think that'll be great. I would expect if they got a brand new building that the NHL would give them an all-star game, would give them a draft and all that. It seems kind of standard. But at any rate, let me know your thoughts. Do you think it ends up in LeBreton Flats? I know there was at least one of the ownership potentials that hinted that maybe it would be somewhere else. But let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.